more people seem to be predicting the same thing. Like, I've been floating all week, like, hey, don't be surprised if the Niners trade with the Jaguars for pick 17. Then Benjamin Albright, who is a great friend of mine, said the same thing in his mock draft, which is crazy. Great minds think alike. So, first of all, how likely do you think it is that Ike is traded to Jacksonville? And then I got a question after that. Like, if they, first of all, I want to know how likely you think it is.
To Jacksonville specifically?
17.
I don't know.
They've been reported
10% maybe?
10%. Okay. If that 10% happens and they do trade up, which player do you think they would take?
I think it'd have to be for an offensive lineman.
I would think so.
Here's the problem. Yeah, here's the problem. If you trade up and you draft a receiver, I don't know, whoever's available, it doesn't matter, and that receiver doesn't pan out, that's bad. That's bad for business. You go offensive lineman, that makes things a lot easier. And I think the talent at offensive lineman around pick 17 will be better than the talent at wide receiver. Because outside the top 3, you could go anywhere. I mean, maybe Brian Thomas Jr. falls, but he's got some medical red flags now.
Yep.
A.D. Mitchell has his issues with his diabetes and some other things going on. So, I don't know. Are the 49ers a team that sees those guys with the red flags? Not sure. But the offensive tackles that are going to presumably be there are going to be decent. And I would say the crop of 2 or so that are going to be there at 17 are going to be much better than the guys that might be at 31. So I would go there. And then I think that second batch of receivers, whether it's A.D. Mitchell, Ladd McConkey, whoever it is, 3 or 4 guys that are in that kind of mold, you can choose from those guys at 31 and be fine and probably get a guy. So I would say offensive tackle or offensive lineman in general.
Yeah, I would agree. It seems like if you trade Aiyuk for that top 20 pick, then you have 2 first-round picks. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people would like the Niners to take an offensive lineman and a wide receiver. If you trade Aiyuk, you got to take a wide receiver at some point. But I feel like if you took the wide receiver at the top 20 pick, you'd get a good one. But then the offensive tackle you'd get later wouldn't be that. Like, the combination of taking a wide receiver, an offensive tackle first, and a wide receiver second seems like a better combination of talent than the other way around. Because the wide receiver you can get in round at 31 or trading down in round 2, a lot of time those guys are as good or better than the ones that go in round 1. The wide receiver talent usually goes deep into round 2. And I feel like that's always a great round to take a wide receiver anyway. So they could, Debo was a second round pick. Rashee Rice was a second round pick. And he just had 1,000 yards as a rookie on a Super Bowl winning team. You can get really good players who are ready to go. George Pickens was a second round pick. Same.
Yeah, there's good receivers in round 2. There's good receivers. I agree with you. Yeah. Nice. Well played. Well played. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the crop of 2 or 3 tackles that are available there are much better, clearly better than the guys that are going to be there at 31, the 2 or 3. And the difference between the receivers, the 2 or 3 that are going to be there at 17 versus the 2 or 3 that are going to be there at 31, I think that you can make an argument that maybe those guys that are going to be there at 31 are better than the guys at 17. I don't think you can make that argument for the offensive lineman. Again, presumably, we don't know how this draft's going to necessarily fall, but that's at least the way that I see it. That's the way I would look at it. And again, I also think it gets you off the hook of the comparison, the Javon Kinlaw comparison to Buckner. You don't want that situation again. That wasn't a good situation. So I wouldn't trade Aiyuk and then go for wide receiver. But the question now becomes, okay, the 49ers, let's say they're not willing to go above 25. I don't know what the number is, but let's say they're not willing to go above 25. That's the hiccup. They don't want to pay Brandon Aiyuk. Is a team really going to say, hey, you've had this guy in your building for 4 years. You don't want to give him $27 million. We'll give him 27 and we'll give you a first round pick. I don't know that that's realistic at this point. I mean, that's a high mark to ask for. Now, maybe if you give Aiyuk in a 4th rounder, maybe you can talk. I don't know. I feel like 17 is steep.
I mean, it's what the Titans got for A.J. Brown. They traded A.J. Brown for 18 and a fourth, and the Eagles gave him, the extension that was $25 million at the time. It'd be about $27 million now. So that's why I think it could happen. I mean, it's also Trent Baalke, who's not good. And we know Trent Baalke. Like, I've looked at it since he's been a general manager, 2 different spots. He's taken a wide receiver before round 4 twice. AJ Jenkins and Laviska Shenault. So he has no clue. And at this point, with his job on the line, he should not have it come down to his ability to pick a wide receiver in the draft. He's smart enough not to put himself in that position. Also, I think he feels he could take a corner at 17. He could just but there's a lot of pressure to make the playoffs in Jacksonville and to make Trevor Lawrence look elite. And if he can't do both of those things, he could get fired. He's been there 4 years. And if you're under that kind of pressure, you could do something a little kooky, which is this. So I feel like Trent Baalke is absolutely the mark the Niners are looking for in this situation.
No, I don't disagree with you. And I think more importantly, whether his job's on the line or not, which we assume it is, you got to know if Trevor Lawrence is a guy, your long-term quarterback. And the only way to find that out is by surrounding him with some weapons. You tried to do it. The guys that you got weren't the greatest. Ridley dropped passes all over the place. So go get him a sure-handed player, a guy that can get open, and see what he can do with it. And if he can't make it work with Brandon Aiyuk there, then it's like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. We can't pay you. We're going to have to pivot. But you have to figure that out. So, yeah, maybe they are the team.
One other team that could do it. Daniel Jeremiah brought him up today on Twitter. Okay. The Indianapolis Colts. They have picked 15. And here's why the Colts could do it. They were the ones that took Buckner off the Niners' hands. You know what I'm saying? Like all the things you say about cornerstone player sets the culture. Chris Ballard values that. And he saw the Niners sort of haggling over a few $1 million with a cornerstone player and said, thank you, we'll take him. He might see another opportunity to do the same thing.
And they've got to figure out what Richardson is too.
Right.
He's going into
and
year 2.
And they can afford to give Aiyuk a ton of money, because they're not giving Richardson much.
Yeah, I mean they're paying Pittman. They just paid Pittman, but you give him Pittman and Aiyuk. I mean, you're going to find out real quick what Richardson is or what he isn't.
There's options. And then there's a Washington on day. Let's say no team in the top 20 does it, and you get to day 2. Phone could still be open. I mean, Washington could offer both of their second-round picks. And that's like the 15th pick in the draft if you add them up together.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I don't think Washington would be the team, but I think the Patriots have 2 picks.
Okay.
And the Patriots have been traditionally awful at picking receiver. If they do take a quarterback in round 1, especially if they trade back and get more picks and then take their quarterback, they really become a team that might go after a Brandon Aiyuk. You've got Bourne in the building. Bourne can tell you, hey, this guy's worth it. Go get him. You know he's good. Pay him. You got your rookie quarterback. Surround him with talent. You picked up extra picks by trading back a few spots already. I could see the Patriots possibly being that team.
Let's go back to Washington for a second. And I'm leaning on Tom Jensen a little bit, who emailed me this. It's going to be an excerpt from his upcoming article for our website, si.com/NFL/49ers. He's looking at Washington. Now, what's interesting about Washington, they have Adam Peters, so he knows Brandon Aiyuk really well. He's trying to set a new culture. Aiyuk can help him do that. They're probably going to they could draft Jaden Daniels, and those two played at Arizona State together once upon a time. Teams like reuniting college wide receiver quarterback tandems. You saw that in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Don't know that he would get both second-round picks, but maybe you get 40 and some other picks. I don't know. It just seems like something Adam Peters might be interested in.
You know what else Adam Peters might be interested in?
What?
Going to pick 30 and undercutting the 49ers for a player that he knows they probably like. Ooh, wouldn't that be like the most seething thing you could do?
Yeah, since he built their draft board.
Yeah.
Yeah. That could happen. Maybe. All the more reason to trade out of 31.
Yeah, exactly. If you can. Yeah, I agree. The
All right,
tough thing is trading out of 31 is likely if there's a quarterback available. If there's not a quarterback, I don't know.
true.